Thank you all for coming. I notice everyone's already been sucking into the delectable insects. But this is Incr-Edible Insects, which are the sustainable, healthy, and delectable alternative to meat. And I'll explain why in a bit. But the reason I've got into this whole insect eating thing is I am an ambassador for Thoughts for Food, which is a global movement which tries to inspire novel thinking about how to solve the global food crisis. So it's an international competition aimed at top universities around the globe. And I took part in the first competition last year for Manchester University. And now I'm an ambassador, so I actually judge this year's competition. So I'm going to meet all the winners in Pittsburgh next week. Well, we're actually going to meet Bill Clinton and try and get him to eat some locusts. And try and ratify them in public. That'd be quite cool. And Jamie Oliver, actually, that'd be quite good. My talk is twofold. One, I want to talk about how our current meat consumption is completely unsustainable for both the planet and the human population. The 930 million hungry people who can't afford to eat meat, basically. And there is a perfectly tasty alternative, which I'm sure a lot of you already realise now. So when you think of meat, this is probably what you think about. This is probably what we all think about. Cows, pigs, chickens, sheep. Not limited to these, you can have some kangaroo steaks in Australia or something, but this is pretty much what we think of as meat. And we love meat. In the developed world, we have got a massive appetite for it. On average, we have 80 kilograms of meat per person per day in the developed world. In the United States, it's actually 120 kilograms per person per year, which is a hell of a lot of meat. And the global population is increasing day by day, almost exponentially, and some of this population is becoming more affluent, a minority of it in the developed world. And this is actually the growth in demand for meat worldwide. So the dark red regions on this map are where meat consumption is going to increase to around over 1,000 kilograms per square kilometre per year. The greener regions are where meat consumptions are going to decrease, but actually this is it's a bit of a lie, because basically this is where people are moving out of the countryside and moving into cities. So all the red points here are the nucleation points where people are moving to the cities. And this is the most worrying part. This is where most of the world's most hungry people live, and this is where meat consumption is increasing rapidly, but hungry people can't afford meat. I'll come back to that later. But basically, the world is demanding a hell of a lot more beef, and it's the same for poultry. This is chicken, India especially. It's the same for pork, with the obvious exception of the Middle East, where no one eats pork. And then mutton as well, where actually it's more of an Eastern Hemisphere thing, mutton. But basically, the demand for meat worldwide is increasing massively. In China, for example, meat consumption has gone up from 20 kilograms per person to 50 kilograms per person in the last 20 years, and this number is ever increasing. And there's a lot more Chinese people than there are people in most of the developed world put together. And cows, livestock, pigs, sheep, chickens need food, like us, and they need a lot of water, and they need a hell of a lot of these things. This is a cow. Get used to this cow. You're going to see this cow quite a lot in this presentation. From cows we get beef, steak, whatever, and steak's good, it's tasty. But for each kilogram of beef that we produce from livestock, it takes... Actually, this is my really conservative figure, because people argue about this, but the official UN statistics are between 13,000 and 15,000 litres of water to make 1 kilogram of beef. I'm using this conservative figure to avoid argument, which I get into a lot with some people. To put this into perspective though, it takes about between 1,000 and 3,000 litres to make grain, so rice, maize, wheat and that sort of thing. So there's a massive step up in the amount of water we need to make 1 kilogram of beef compared to what we actually need to eat, which is grain. So I did some quick maths. If it takes 8,000 litres of water to make 1 kilogram of beef, to make 1 cow it's 3.6 million litres of water. And this is a small cow we're talking about. In Great Britain, we have 8.5 million cows, which is a lot of cows. In the United Kingdom, we have more like 10 million, and about 3/4 of these are for steak production. But the figures are similar for milk as well as a kilogram of beef. Does anyone know what this is?
Lake District.
Yes, which lake?
Windermere.
It's Windermere. It takes 47 Windermeres to provide water for all the cows in Britain. It's a lot of Windermeres. Oh, we got any Northern Irish people in the room? This is Loch Ness, exactly. And it takes 8.5 Loch Ness, which is the biggest freshwater lake in the United Kingdom, which is 31 trillion litres of water to rear all of our cattle. And that's just in the United Kingdom. There are 1.5 billion cows and bulls on Earth. Which is a lot of cattle. That's a significant amount compared to the human population. This would take 18,160 Windermeres to water. It does take that much. It's 1,497 Loch Ness. Does anyone know what this is? This is Lake Baikal in Russia. It's in Siberia. This contains 20% of the Earth's fresh water. This lake contains more water than all of the North American Great Lakes combined. And it takes a quarter of Lake Baikal, a quarter of the water in Lake Baikal, which is the biggest freshwater lake on Earth, to rear our cattle population. Which is, there's more zeros in this number than the human language has a word for. Until somebody makes that much money, I don't think there'll be a word for it. But it's 5,448 trillion litres of water required to rear all the cattle on Earth, which is an insane amount of water. That's 5% of the Earth's surface freshwater. 70% of our planet is water, but only 2.5% of that is freshwater. And of the water we use, 70% goes to agriculture, and the vast majority goes to rear livestock. And it's not just cattle. That's a big number. That's a lower estimate, by the way, I've already said. It takes 700 trillion litres of water to rear our 1 billion pigs. It takes 432 trillion litres of water to rear our 1.2 billion sheep, and 139 trillion litres of water to rear our poultry. 18.5 billion chickens. My point being that the water footprint of livestock is absolutely huge in the developed and developing world now. And this is a massive problem because we're running out of water rapidly due to climate change and using too much water. It's happening all over the world. This is an example. This is Lake Chad, which straddles 4 countries, some of the most populous countries in Africa as well. And this is in 1963. This was the size of the lake. Over the last 4 or 5 decades, it's dwindled to this tiny amount here. This little bit of blue is the amount of water left in Lake Chad. And I could show you this picture for any part of the world. This is happening all over the world. This is the Colorado River in the western United States and northern Mexico. This no longer reaches the sea. It is drying up because we are using far too much water. And we're using a lot of water on stuff we don't need to actually use it on. This is the water stress of the planet at the moment. The dark red regions and the red regions and the dark orange are where we are using more water than is actually can be efficiently replenished. So we're running out. And this is the case in the Middle East. Most of the aquifers are dried out, and their fossil aquifers will never be repleted. And this is the same. California will not have any more fresh water in 8 years' time. It's been worked out. And this is the same all over the world. It's a pretty horrific situation, and we're using too much fresh water. We can't replenish it. In 100 years' time, this is going to happen, basically, if we carry on the way we're going. All these red regions here will be severely water stressed. And that includes Great Britain. We've already had a drought this year. In East Anglia and Essex are predicted to maybe become desert sooner or later if we carry on the way we're going. It's an insane situation. But my major point is that we need this water to do other things like grow crops, which we actually need to eat. This is crop production compared to crop consumption. And actually, over the last 12 years, there have been more years where we've consumed more grain than we can actually produce. This black line is the stuff we produce, these green bars are what we consume. And this is only going to get worse because yields are plateauing. No matter what we do, conventional breeding, GM, we are not actually producing any more grain anymore. And this is the world grain production per person, so the human population is increasing dramatically. And as the population increases, the amount of grain we have per person is dropping. This is the Green Revolution. This is where India and China faced severe famine. And this is the increase in crop production we had thanks to Norman Borlaug and the Green Revolution, where he made dwarf wheat. But due to climate change, due to the fact that we're running out of fresh water, all these sort of different things, and due to the fact the population is increasing, we're going to slide down to a similar level. This is not a problem just for the developed world, this is going to be a problem for everyone sooner or later. In fact, it's already affecting us. Food prices are skyrocketing because we don't have enough food to go around. And this is the world hunger map from last year. All these countries in red are where there's up to a third malnourishment, between a quarter and a third malnourishment. The dark red regions are where malnourishment is over a third of people. Even in countries, sort of developed countries nowadays, like Brazil, they've got 10% malnourishment. All around the world. And the region I want you to look at is this one, because I've already said our demand for meat is increasing. We've got a more affluent minority in these sort of countries who are demanding more and more meat. But this actually takes grain off the plate of the hungry people who cannot afford to buy meat. And there's an incredible discrepancy here. So there's 578 million people in Asia and the Pacific who are hungry or malnourished. And this is a map of the areas where are best suited for growing crops in the world. The darkest red regions are the best projected output for crops. And we do grow a lot of crops in these regions, in North America, in the prairies, well, not so much in Brazil, in Europe. But here, where in India and China, the best places for growing crops are, and where most of the malnourished people are in the world. Yet, this is the cattle density map of the world. And actually, the most densely populated areas in the world for cattle are in the exact same regions where we'd be best suited for growing grain. Cattle are directly competing with people's food, and poor hungry people cannot afford to eat meat. It's too expensive. I can barely afford to eat meat. So, this is the growth and demand for beef again. This is only going to get worse. There's going to be more and more people unable to afford meat. Meat's being reared on the most fertile land for growing crops. And the problem is, in India, there are now over 100 million obese or overweight people. And these directly take the food off the plates of about 340 million hungry Indian people. Worldwide, there are over 1 billion overweight or obese people. There are more people worldwide who are overweight than there are who are hungry, which is pretty abhorrent, quite frankly. My point being, livestock are directly competing with grain. Hungry people cannot eat grain. It's not fair at all that we're eating this much livestock. And the other problem is that livestock are hungry for grain. Livestock eat a hell of a lot of grain. In America, 70% of the total grain that's produced goes into feeding livestock. If you take all of the legumes, grain, and other crops that we feed to US livestock, for every 157 million tonnes, we only get 28 million tonnes back in meat, which means that around 60% is being lost, completely lost. And it's the same in Europe. We are only 15% self-sufficient in protein. So, despite the fact we have cattle growing on fertile pasture, or eating rain-fed grass, we actually feed them a hell of a lot of grain just to fatten them up before slaughter. And we're actually taking this grain from the USA and South America. We don't grow it here. We haven't got enough room to grow it here because over 70% of our land is dedicated to growing livestock. And we're taking soya. Well, basically, our demand for meat directly affects hungry people in South America who are being displaced due to increasing soya plantations. And we're taking the food out of the mouths of hungry people in South America who can't afford the meat that's being grown, being produced there. It's crazy. In total, 70% of the agricultural land worldwide goes into producing livestock. So that's the land that we use to grow livestock and the grain. 70% of our total agricultural land goes into producing livestock, which is a massive number. We can barely sustain a human population, never mind an incredible population of livestock. A third of our total crops go into feeding 1 billion pigs, 1.2 billion sheep, 1.5 billion cattle, and 18.5 billion chickens and other livestock. We only get a third of crops for ourselves because we waste a third of our crops from farm to supermarket. We have a third of our total crops go to feed 9 billion people, 930 million of whom are hungry and cannot afford meat. So all these animals are better fed than 930 million hungry people. And this is only going to get worse. The human population is increasing. And as it's, I've got a token slide in here because it's a Marine Biological Association. A third of our total fish catch goes into producing farmed fish. For every 4 kilograms of wild fish you give to farmed fish, you only get 1 kilogram back. Pigs and poultry, a third of our total fish catch. So we're not even eating all the fish that we're plundering out of the oceans. And this is this statistic says it all. For every 10 kilogram of crops that we feed to poultry, we get 5 kilograms back, so we lose half of it. For every 10 kilograms of crops, we get 3 kilograms back in swine. This wouldn't be as big a problem, except due to foot and mouth regulations in Europe, we can't feed pigs our waste anymore, which is a bit silly because there's no scientific basis in that. But for every 10 kilograms of crops, we only get 1 kilogram back in beef. And we're losing 90%. And it goes basically to waste. Quite graphic, but it's true. Cows produce an awful lot of shit, basically. In the USA, 1.4 billion tonnes per year, which is about 100,000 metric tonnes per minute from US livestock, actually. And this is 130 times the weight of the human population, which is an incredible number, if you think about it. Because of this, and not only because of this, because of transport costs, logistics, producing antibiotics and growth hormone for our horribly, horribly ill livestock worldwide. Livestock are responsible for 9% of carbon dioxide emissions, which is 12 to 22% of CO2 equivalent. In Britain, that's only about 8%, but worldwide, this is the problem. There's also deforestation put into that, which is another reason. A third of all the methane produced worldwide is produced by livestock. And methane is 20 times more potent than carbon dioxide at warming the atmosphere. Which is happening. We're watching our ice caps melting right now. It's incontrovertible. And they produce 2/3 of ammonia, which is the biggest cause of acid rain. And in fact, ammonia is horrible. You can see it in Holland, you can see it in Britain right now. Anywhere downwind of a farm, trees are lodged because the nitrogen deposition is so great that trees are lodging. You can see it in farms, especially in Holland because it's so densely populated, and in England you can see trees that are turning yellow and lodging because of the excess ammonia and the excess nitrogen being deposited around them. And it's not just that. Cattle are the major driver of deforestation worldwide. We've got an increasing appetite for meat worldwide, which basically means we chop down more rainforest to grow more soya to feed more cattle, and we chop more rainforest down to grow more cattle. And this is happening all over the world. We've not got enough land to sustain our ever increasing population of livestock. And overgrazing, so we have got land suitable for rearing cattle. It doesn't have to be in the areas we grow crops. We've got extensive grasslands all around the world, except these are now so populated with cattle that they are being overgrazed. And cattle are causing the desertification of about 1/5 of the pasture worldwide. So deserts are expanding because of our increased appetite for cattle. And this is a really bad one. Doesn't really get mentioned a lot, but cattle, eutrophication is mainly caused by cattle. Cattle and sheep and that sort of thing. Their waste runs off into rivers, into lakes, and there's actually a dead zone this big in the Gulf of Mexico now, specifically because of dung going into the rivers like the Mississippi and that sort of thing. It's causing a massive loss of biodiversity and habitat worldwide. We can't sustain our population of livestock as it is, and we really cannot sustain an increasing appetite for meat worldwide. So there must be another way. And there is. Insects. Insects, as many of you have already noticed, are really, really tasty. But they're more sustainable in terms of global food production. They've got a lower environmental impact, and they are healthy. I'll come to this in a minute, but they're really healthy, and they taste so good. They're amazing. There's 1,500 species of edible insect, compared to a measly there's scores of edible species of meat. There's so much more choice in flavour and texture with insects. And you can eat the different growth stages. You can have larvae, you can have adult. It's amazing. So back to our cow. One cow makes one cow. It's pretty simple maths. It's not very efficient. And it takes about a year to grow a calf. To rear a calf. It's a bit harsh. To rear a calf for meat. One locust can breed thousands and thousands and thousands of locusts. And it takes around 7 weeks from egg to adult. And you can do this all year round. A cattle will give birth to a calf once a year, if you're lucky. This will happen every 7 weeks. Every locust will make 1,000 eggs for another locust, or every lady locust anyway. And it comes to the crop thing. For food security, for every 10 kilograms of crop, you get 3 of pig, 5 chicken, 1 kilogram of beef. You get 9 kilograms of locusts. And locusts aren't picky. Locusts will eat the stuff that we won't eat. We like grain. The locusts will eat the leaves on the grain that we don't use. They will eat our green waste. So this is an even lower figure if you actually think about it. But they're so much more efficient. They are cold-blooded for a start. They don't lumber around breathing all the, making themselves warm all the time in our tepid climate. If you look at the average daily mass gain of a cow, it's 0.3%, which is rubbish. For a pig, it's a bit better. It's 3.2%. For a cricket, we've got some crickets over here. They're really good. My favourite insect now. They gain 7% of body mass daily. And the locust puts on almost 20% of its body mass per day, each day. So in 7 weeks you get an adult locust. They are so much more efficient at converting their food to mass. And this basically means they waste a lot less. They produce virtually no methane compared to livestock per 100 grams reared. The equivalent carbon dioxide, they still have to breathe and all that. But actually, we'll come to it later, because of the way that you can farm locusts, this would be a much lower figure. You want to transport them around the world from Brazil to the UK and that sort of thing. And actually, they produce a tiny, 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 tiny amount of ammonia. Barely any ammonia. So, less acid rain, barely any acid rain. And this is an example of an insect farm in the Netherlands. In the Netherlands, you can basically grow insects. You don't need pasture, you can grow them in your house. You can grow them in warehouses, in vertical farms. You can grow insects up. It takes, in a 2D plane, it would take around 20 times less land to rear the same amount of insect meat, so 100 grams of insect. But you can grow them up. The amount of land you need to grow insects is so small compared to livestock. It makes complete sense. You would not have the deforestation or any of that. There'd be no land for pasture. You can literally grow them in warehouses. You can grow them in abandoned warehouses around cities. And they're going to be right next to where you need them. You can grow insects in a warehouse next to the supermarket. You don't have to transport them all the way around the world. It makes perfect sense. And this is the best thing I've ever seen. It was amazing. In Mexico, they decided they're not going to use insecticides to clear the fields because they've got all these perfectly... In Mexico, they eat a hell of a lot of insects, grasshoppers mainly. And this is a paper looking at... So they got local people, they pay local people in Mexico to harvest insects instead of using pesticides in a lot of regions. And it makes perfect sense. It's good food, it's good nutritious food. And it's this region here. And they tried about 9 different sites, and they had 3 control sites. Well, they've done it quite a few years in a row. 3 control sites. Fields, so they have 3 control sites with no insecticide or human capture or anything like that. And then they have 3 fields here where they use human capture, and they have 3 fields where they use insecticide. And actually, yeah, there's a little difference, but basically capture works just as well as insecticide. People make about $3,000 a year. People who don't get enough money most of the time, they basically get food, they can sell the food at market, $3,000 a year, and it actually works out better for the farmer because it's cheaper than using insecticide. And they actually do this in Japan. In Japan, whilst we were having food surpluses, they were actually proposing that we leave rice fields for insects to graze so we could pick the insects. It works so well. Insects are so... And we'll come to this in a minute. Insects are really nutritious. Fundamentally, my point is, if we ate a lot more insects and a lot less livestock, this would be a lesser problem, which means there'd be more food for people, which means this would look a hell of a lot better. We wouldn't use as much grain to feed our livestock. So, arguably this would go down and this would go up. We'd have a lot more food to go around and food that people can afford, which means that this would be a lesser problem. The maths makes sense, but it depends if people are willing to change their attitude to food. Fundamentally, there'd be less deforestation. You don't need to use a massive extensive pasture. There'd be less desertification because there wouldn't be overgrazing of fertile land. There'd be far less pollutants or emissions as a result of eating insects. There'd be a much lower water footprint. Insects are really efficient at metabolizing water from their food. They don't have to drink. Desert locusts, they live in the desert. They're adapted to not have water. There'd be more land to grow crops, and there'd be more food for people, and that's why I'm interested in the insect eating. And this is really cool. So some researchers from Groningen University in Holland, if I pronounced that right, they're really into insect eating. And actually they've come up with this really cool kit, which is for people in areas of famine and refugees to grow their own locusts, because you don't need any water and stuff like that. And you can give them a tiny amount of sort of grain or sort of green biomass. And you can actually grow some locusts in a box for your family. This is really cool. In fact, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation have recently given a grant to a researcher in Gainesville, about £100,000 to make insect paste to distribute to hungry people around the world. So I hope that works, because it'd be really good. And this is why it would work, because malnutrition isn't just hunger, it's a problem of low iron, low vitamin A, all these deficiencies. This is a list of 25 species of Orthoptera, so grasshoppers, crickets, that sort of thing, cockroaches maybe. In Mexico, and these are all edible in Mexico. People eat these all the time. There's about 22 to 28 grams of protein per beef. In your average Orthoptera, there's between 47 and 77 grams of protein. There's around 2 to 3 times more protein in your 100 grams of grasshopper compared to 100 grams of beef. It's a lot more. And these are cheaper than beef as well. And this is the calorific content. So these are all our legumes, which are pretty calorific, our cereals. But then we have beef. This is 1,735 per kilo calories. This is pork, which is about 3,000 per kilo. There are more calories per kilo of insect than there are in beef. You can eat less of them to get the same amount of food, basically. They're high in everything. You've got different ones. Your larvae are high in fats. Your grasshoppers are quite high in protein. You've got ones that are high in carbohydrate. You've got so much choice as well. There's 1,500 species of insect. You can gear your diet to exactly what you need. These are the vitamins in 100 grams of insect. So I could list you a lot more papers. There's a lot of studies been done. Caterpillars, for example, contain about 10 times more iron per 100 grams than beef. But this is the daily human requirement of thiamine, riboflavin, and niacin. These are 3 very important vitamins. You don't even get this in chicken and beans, you do in beef. But you'll see, these are larvae, so these are things that are eaten in Thailand and Southeast Asia all the time. They're a delicacy. And you get many times more nutrients per 100 grams with a lot of vitamins and minerals. This is the same for a lot of insects. They're really, really, really dense in vitamins, nutrients, minerals, protein. They're really, really, really nutritious. And they're really abundant, and there's loads of them. And you can gear each one to your specifications. In the developed world, we've got a massive problem with iron deficiency. If you ate caterpillars, you wouldn't have that problem. It's a fact. And the health. This is another thing. We're living in a very unhealthy world at the moment. This is the bleeding heart. It's not actually a heart, it's a cake. Pretty realistic though. It's quite, I don't know. I'm not sure how advertising it is, but heart attacks are now the leading cause of death amongst males in North America. And this is inextricably linked to a massive appetite for beef burgers. In your average 100 grams of beef, which is less than a portion for most people, there's 118% of your recommended daily amount of cholesterol. So the average amount that somebody might eat on a steak dinner would be many more times this. These are bees, honeybees. Honeybee larvae are known as the the bacon of the insect world. That's what they are. There's a woman called Maria Martinez who lives in America now. She cooks these up. They're really tasty. And these are leaf-cut ants, which they eat in cinemas in Colombia instead of popcorn. They toast them. And these have no cholesterol whatsoever, none. Insects you can't synthesize the cholesterol inside themselves. They've got to get it from the diet. Which means that other insects which do have a tiny, tiny, tiny amount of cholesterol, you can breed to not have any. If you breed crickets on alfalfa oils instead of other stuff, then they don't have any cholesterol. Full stop. It makes sense health-wise. And pretty much every edible species of insect has less than 40% saturated fat compared to the other one, non-saturated fat. Which is pretty equivalent to chicken and fish, but they've got a higher omega-3 content than even fish. Much more omega-3. The linoleic acids or whatever they're called. Insects are ridiculously healthy for you. They're more nutrients, more protein, and less saturated fat, no cholesterol, and higher omega-3. It's genius. Omega-3 is as good, weight for weight, as statins at preventing heart disease. And this is the other one for health. All of these diseases exist in humans because we farm livestock. You can trace them crossing the animal-human boundary, so around the time we started domesticating livestock on a large scale. Flu comes from birds and pigs. SARS was a recent one, killed a lot of people around the world. And TB, bovine TB, crossed the animal-human barrier around the time we domesticated animals. And I could list you more. Toxoplasma. Lamb is one of the biggest causes of toxoplasma. And a significant majority of people in the Western world, in the developed world, have toxoplasma. A lot of people in this room will have it, we just don't know about it. It'll come to haunt us soon. And finally, insects are a delicacy. Insects are eaten by 2.5 billion people worldwide. And 2.5 billion people can't be wrong. It's a lot of people, and they love it. We're the weird ones in the developed world, should I say. We're the strange ones. It's only really in North America and Europe that people don't eat insects on a large scale. They're abundant. There's loads of insects. I've already shown you we can catch them in the wild as crop protection. We don't have to kill them in this exercise. We can catch them and eat them. They're meaty, as you'll find out. Someone down at reception described them as like beef chili or something. Chili beef, that's the one. And they've been described as a lot. And there's 1,500 edible species. There's a massive range of insects that we can eat. There's a whole range of tastes and textures. And it's amazing. You have so much. You can have larvae, which have got that nice little bursting feeling in your mouth. Or you've got the crunchy ones. Hey, it's just like a prawn, really, if you think about it. It's nice. And this is what we already eat. These are a delicacy. These are a luxury item. We eat these as a luxury. We pay like 50 quid for a lobster. They've got more legs than insects. More legs. That looks disgusting. That's a shrimp. Look at that. Is that really appetizing? Like, really? And these are dirty, dirty things. These eat our pollution. It's disgusting. In fact, insects are some of the cleanest eaters you can get. Like, they're cleaner than anything else we can eat. And crab. I'm showing you these because these aren't insects, but they fall under the entomophagy or insect-eating category. And scorpions taste like crab. Pretty good. This is a tarantula in Cambodia. They have oven-baked tarantula, which tastes pretty crabby as well. And these are woodlice. Woodlice actually turn red when you cook them, just like lobster. It's amazing. And they're actually the same thing as a crustacean. It makes perfect sense. And they're everywhere as well. In your back garden, you can go out and pick some. Breed them on a bit of stuff. In Japan, Insects are a delicacy. Wasps and hornets can fetch up to $15 per 100 gram. They're an absolute delicacy. And I could stand here for the next hour or two and name every country in the world and everything. I'm not going to. I'm going to pick out some examples. But here, I've already mentioned the leafcutter ants in Colombia. I actually asked at the cinema last night if we could have some toasted leafcutter ants. Anyway, I recommended it. And these are lemon ants, so these taste like lemons, believe it or not. They're full of citric acid. Genius. And these are eaten quite a lot in South America. In Mexico, so caviar is another luxury we have. Fish eggs. Doesn't sound very appetizing to me. But these are ant eggs. These are called escamoles or something. Escamoles. There we go. Cool. Yeah, these are a delicacy. These fetch a lot of money. And they're really tasty. I've never had some. I really want some. And I think, are these gusamos or something? These are butterfly, these are caterpillars basically. So these are really tasty caterpillars. In Australia, we must have all seen I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. This is the famed Wichita grub of I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. But no one in their right minds would eat a raw one of these. You would fry them in a pan. Only if you were, on death's door in the middle of the outback, looking for something to eat, would you eat these raw. But these are massive. Look how big that is. That's a plate. That is big. That's a steak basically, in the insect world. And these are honeypot ants. These Aborigines eat these, so you can actually pick them up and suck the honey off the back of them. Because what they do is they make honey in their abdomen, and then they trot along, and then all the workers come up and suck it out as a feast. It's brilliant. It's like Lucozade for ants. And you can eat these. You can pick them up and suck the honey off the back of them, and pretty tasty. And then in Thailand, we have sago worms. So these are one of the ones I showed you in the nutrients table before. They actually do eat these alive. I'm not sure I would, to be honest. We did. The thing is, me and Chris Bird over here, we were in the Ecuadorian rainforest once, and then we were staying with the tribe who presented us with this bucket of sort of throbbing beetle larvae. And then they were all cooking on the barbecue, so we ate some, and they were really nice, really crunchy and smoky. But then there was one left in the bucket, and Chris was like, "Oh, let's share one." Thinking nothing of it, so I bit into it. It was horrible. Imagine like a tomato just bursting. It was disgusting. But anyway, yeah, that's why I wouldn't eat a raw one of these. But they're really tasty when they're cooked though. But you wouldn't tuck into a roast. You wouldn't just bite a cow, would you? I don't know. Anyway, you just wouldn't. You'd cook it. These are bamboo worms. Similar thing, but these are just grubs. Really tasty. In China, this is just a tiny, tiny selection of what people eat in Southeast Asia. But you can have centipedes on a stick. Giant centipedes. That's pretty cool. You can walk down the street in the market to just have all these scorpions on a stick. Have you seen the advert, the HSBC advert, where the little girl's got a sort of stick of scorpions and then she's sulking and you put the sprinkles on it and her face lights up? Because these are a delicacy in Southeast Asia. And quite rightly too, it's so tasty. And this is my friend from Vietnam, and he owns a company called Bug Corporation. It's a project. Because basically the problem is, in the developing world, there's something called a fast food culture. So our culture of eating lots and lots of meat is transferring over, and people are losing their traditional outlook on food. So actually, insect consumption is going down, which is a shame because they're really tasty and it's really popular. This is some Wichita grubs that he's fried up. These are photos from Facebook that he's got. It's amazing. Every day there's a new dish. It's brilliant. I need to start getting some of these crazy bugs. These are little scorpion cakes. Pretty nice. I've only got a mealworm cake over here. Seems a bit disappointing after that. But that's a cool project. But I've also got friends, so this is Chef David George Gordon, who has written a book called The Eat a Bug Cookbook, which is up here. And he basically puts on feasts every year. He's got the Feast of St. Gratus. St. Gratus is the patron saint of insect fear, of fearing insects. So he gets people from all over America and all around once a year in Seattle to come to eat bugs in his restaurant. It's really popular. He does shows and demonstrations. He's flying the flag for entomophagy in the United States. These are his little cricket hors d'oeuvre thing. They're guacamole ones. I've got some hummus ones over here. If no one's had any yet, they're really good. The crickets have been baked and roasted. And this is Daniela Martin. This is Girl Meets Bug. She puts on lots of shows around America. And she doesn't know it yet, but she's my future wife-to-be. This is a massive selection of the food that she prepares. She basically gets kids to come up and try all these sort of stuff, and you never have a bad reaction. It's so tasty. And I've actually got a friend in Holland, Ger van der Waal, and he has a company called Deli Bugs now. So he actually gets insects. He gets locusts and mealworms and crickets and things and freeze-dries them. Some of them we've got on the table today. Specifically for humans, for us to eat. And actually this is a massively growing movement in Holland. There's about 10 restaurants now in the Netherlands where you can buy insects and eat them. as a delicacy. In fact, in London, there's a restaurant called Archipelago where they occasionally have bee larvae and locusts on the menu. So I tried to ring them to get them to divulge where they get their insects from, but they weren't very nice. So I'm never going to go and eat there, unfortunately. But yeah, and these are some of the things that I've been making. So these are some of the locusts marinating in peri peri sauce, a la Nando's. I think they taste better than Nando's chicken, personally. These are some in sweet chili sauce. And this, see, waste not, want not. I don't use the legs off locusts and stuff like that, and some people don't like the heads. So what I did is I made a locust head brittle, because locust heads taste kind of nutty. They're really nice. The brain's the best bit, actually. But and you wouldn't eat a cow brain. You maybe would in France. I don't know. But yeah, this is a seems daft. This is a locust head brittle. It's so good. This went down like a stone. And yeah, this is me at an event in Manchester. So I go around the place getting people to eat bugs and that sort of thing and insects. And I took about 200 insects to this, and it went with me about half an hour, which is a bit disappointing because for the rest of the day I had to just talk about what wasn't there. But that's me tucking into a locust, which is my favourite of all the insects. And yeah, I couldn't think of a good way to conclude this talk apart from I write poems about food security and eating insects and all this sort of thing. I've got a blog called Topical Poetry. Actually, that's a good point. Locusts are kosher. Brilliant. And they're halal. It's in the hadith. And they're condoned by Leviticus, so everyone can eat them. It's genius. That was my little haiku for locusts. Locusts are kosher, it says so in the Torah, so let's eat locusts. Don't know why it's so popular, that one. But anyway, to conclude my talk, I actually wrote a poem about 7 months ago, which actually beautifully summarises this talk without me meaning to. So I'm going to say it now. Bugs have benefits, and no, I'm not trying to jest with this, because I insist, if you look at a list of the statistics, it's all about locusts. And no, we are no jokers, but seriously, locusts are certainly a more sustainable way forwards. Compared to that Angus beef in your burgers, they'll leave more grain for the worse off among us. Locusts are 60% protein and lean like baked beans or chicken. But in Thailand, it's insects that make the kids beam, and the kernel ain't the only cause of good finger licking. They taste nutty like cashews, and in fact, they go pretty well in a patty or a butty. We cooked some up in Manchester, made a Thai green curry. We've got to get that to market in a hurry, according to an enthusiastic man from Bury. Now, onto the subject of palate. Let's face it, it's just late that lobster was good enough for a palace, and truly, believe me, it is no fallacy that locusts are as good as those shrimps from the sea. So, in conclusion, to dispel the illusion, insects are tasty, not horrible or gruesome. So once you've removed the heads, wings and legs, they look less like bugs but like langosta instead. And when it comes to making the world well fed, we could do worse than to eat locusts alongside our rice, corn and bread.
They are very, very good, I've got to say, very tasty. You get left with bits in your mouth.
I baked the cake with mealworms in it, and then I toasted the ones on top for 10 minutes and sprinkled them on the Nutella.
It's amazing! Look at these old dogs!
What did you say, Chris?
The greatest thing about that talk, Pete, was that people are left with a brain full of knowledge and a belly full of bugs. It's a win-win situation, isn't it?